Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sports Weekly Podcast, episode 78. This is the Iowa State Daily on the road. We are currently in the car traveling back to Ames from Memphis, Tennessee for the 2023 AutoZone Liberty Bowl against Memphis. It was a 36-26 loss against Memphis, and we're a bit bummed, but we're on the way back to Ames, and I got here Christian.
Yeah, what's going on?
We've got Pavle.
How's it going, everyone?
And we got Logan, who is currently driving, but he's not holding a mic.
10-2, hands on the wheel. Don't worry, Mom. I know you're listening to this. I'm being very cautious, being the dad of the group this weekend.
Exactly. Logan has done a majority of the driving for this trip. He's goated for that, and we're very appreciative.
Oh, yeah.
Breach.
Let's get into it, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry about the trip down.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't, it really didn't feel like a 10-hour drive to me, per se. It's it flew by on the way there for most of it, I would say. And then on the way back, it's it's been a drive, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we drove to Cincinnati earlier in the season. That felt longer than this, just going down there. I don't even know what it was for that. But, yeah, going down to Memphis, pretty nice. We got there on Thursday. And, overall, pretty decent drive. Going through St. Louis was a little rough because I think we were hitting that during traffic hour. But, yeah, that kind of sucked. But now the drive going back has definitely been worse. I'll say that.
Yeah, we can get into more of that later. Yeah, I don't know if the other two have any thoughts on, I guess, the trip in general, just going there.
I mean, I didn't drive the first portion, which was great, so I got to nap. Driving back, pretty easy. I mean, every location we've been passing through has been pretty simple. We haven't got pulled over, which is great. We're going the speed limit. We're driving an Iowa State vehicle, so got to follow strict guidelines. Make sure we're not speeding. Everyone's buckled, the basic stuff.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt, but
go for it.
I wish the love you to death audio listeners, but the sunset right now.
Oh yeah, it's
very beautiful.
It's amazing right now. It's purple and orange.
Honestly, Pavle or Jacob, if one of you guys want to take a picture of that and we can insert that in for the YouTube people, they would definitely love that because it's very beautiful. I will say that.
Oh yeah, I'm getting it right now.
Jacob's
Looks
got that
clean.
photo, but my take on the drive here and there. I mean, this is my first major road trip anywhere. I've never really driven this far. I usually fly to these far places, but for me, naps really helped. I mean, I'm not allowed to drive. The Iowa State cars, 2 are there. I haven't driven at all, so it's been nice just to sit here, talk with the boys. Helps pass time and see the new places. And yeah, it was fun in Memphis.
Yeah, overall, it's a great trip. I mean, the 10 hours of driving there and going to be 10 hours driving back, not my favorite, but I would not rather do this with anyone else,
Yeah, I mean, 10 hours is kind of a good amount of time for us to kind of preview the game, too. We had a lot of good talks about what we were expecting, which it ended up kind of not going the way we expected, but we also had some good talks about just all sports, really anything. So definitely love long road trips. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of them.
I've been pretty fortunate to travel a lot this year for football. I've gone to pretty much everywhere except Baylor, I think, this year. And this driving trip has been great. I mean, flying for BYU, that one was hectic because it was just me and Tyler Coe, our other football photographer for the Daily. And I don't know. Just this driving in the 20 hours of driving has been, way better than expected. And the shorter drives we've had, like Cincinnati, Kansas, those places. Well, Cincinnati wasn't that short, but other places like that, pretty easy too. Just very grateful to be on this trip. Yeah.
And the whole reason, we're going here, going to watch the Cyclones take action in the 65th Liberty Bowl, and kind of what Christian was alluding to, not what I saw at all. If you were reading anything about what I was saying about this game, overall, I was very surprised pretty much from the first couple drives, honestly.
Yeah, and we can get into the game. We'll talk more about kind of the venue and I guess our experience in Memphis after. But, I mean, the game itself is really why we went down there, and I mean, Logan said it best, not really what we expected, especially from the first few drives. I think, we knew that Memphis had a really good offense, especially in the air, but I didn't think that third play into the game that they'd be passing a 70-yard touchdown and pretty much just controlling the game since the opening snap.
And in the first quarter, they scored, 19 points?
Yeah, 19 unanswered points, which I think is the most that Iowa State's given up in a quarter.
And we all predicted that Iowa State was going to win this game. And my score prediction was actually reversed. So Memphis had, I think, the exact same score that I predicted Iowa State to have. And Iowa State had what I predicted Memphis to have. And seeing in that first quarter, the 19 points, I was looking at Tyler Coe, our other sports photographer, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be a good game for Iowa State.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you just look at the last three quarters, I think Iowa State played a really solid game. I think they probably would have won that game if they didn't have to play the first quarter, which has kind of been the case for this team all year, is they really turn it on late. But against Memphis, you really can't do that because they dug such a big hole early on that it was too much for them to overcome.
Yeah, and big plays are obviously the name of the game. Obviously, in the first quarter, those two over 50-yard passes from Seth Hennigan, the Memphis quarterback, really dug them in a hole early. But also, it would have been nice to have defensive backs TJ Tampa and Malik Verdon playing for the Cyclones. They wouldn't have given up those big plays that would have resulted in Memphis scores. Like the whole game just could have turned on a dime right there. So yeah, I mean, they could have used them, but it's unfortunate.
And you talk about the big plays and everything, and Iowa State giving up 19 points in the first quarter. You look at it afterwards, the defense really did step up. They give up 17 points the rest of the game, and Iowa State goes on to score 26. So literally, I mean, if you take out that first quarter, even if you just give up one touchdown or 10 points, whatever it is, you still think that Iowa State is in that game. But just seeing 19 points put on you in the first quarter, that has to be, pretty disheartening, and the offense really could not get anything going, stuck to the ground game like they usually have. And just like always this season, you would hope that they stray away from it before it's too late, and really it was too late by the time they did.
Yeah, and I like that Pavle brought up the loss of TJ Tampa and Malik Verdon. It really was kind of felt there early on. I mean, there was a lot of loose coverages. There was a lot of blown open plays. And, I mean, there's a lot of guys on the secondary that have played meaningful reps, have gotten starts even, but it just felt like they were off, and it took them a long time to find their groove. And I think you have a veteran player like TJ Tampa. I think he's honestly behind the scenes kind of done a good job settling down the team and keeping everybody focused and on track, because I've been saying that this is kind of a game that, even though TJ Tampa wasn't on the field, it raised his draft stock because it really showed how good they are with him, when without him they looked really lost.
I can speak on a little bit of that getting in the groove thing you were talking about. At the start of the arrival, when Iowa State got to the Liberty Bowl, every player had to stay on the field for the first hour they were there, because there was just not enough room in the locker room. And I could tell when I was taking pregame photos, there was just a off vibe in pregame, because people were stressed. Obviously, it's a bowl game. It means a lot to people. And then on top of that, there not being enough room in the locker rooms to where everyone just has to stay out in the cold rain while people are warming up. I think it just was not saying that this contributed to their loss, but it was just a interesting, perspective to see people already starting off the game, not too positive or kind of out of the loop.
Yeah, definitely during pregame. I know I was on the field with you, Jacob, and even Tyler too. It seemed kind of a little bit off. I didn't know the fact that the locker room was kind of small for the visiting opponents for Memphis, but yeah, on top of that, for the defense also, you can see a lot of these big plays happen because of these missed tackles. I know Bo Freeler led the team with 11 total tackles by the end of the game, but a lot of those big plays were either from missed assignments or just missed tackles.
Yeah, that's also something that's kind of been an issue all year, is the tackling, and of course you don't want to see it on the last game of the season, but you did see it quite a bit. And I mean, you talk about Freeler, he's been kind of locked down all year in that area. And I mean, there were a lot of other guys that did step up, but they were able to reach the second level quite a bit because the tackling just wasn't there again, like we've seen. And I mean, we can go against the defense all day, but I do want to bring it back to the venue because, I mean, yeah, that's news to me that the locker rooms kind of caused a little bit of issues, maybe some funk in the team early on. But I mean, the venue as a whole, it really seemed like, I mean, especially the atmosphere of the game, it seemed like it was a home game for Memphis. I mean, the stadium was nowhere near full, and any good play that Memphis had, any bad play that Iowa State had, you could really hear it, especially up in the press box.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously it's not favorable for Iowa State. I mean, they didn't have their choice of where to play or who to play, but, you know, this happened back in 2017 too. They played Memphis at their stadium, and you just saw it was prevalent. I mean, even then, back in 2017, they only won by 1 point with a lot of luck. And even in this game, like you saw, like even hearing it in the press box, like the energy was just different for Memphis. Even though when Iowa State had like bigger plays, it still was loud. But for Memphis, just felt different. That's kind of what did them in.
And especially when you jump out to a 19-point lead, I mean, your home crowd's going to get into that. And like I agree with Christian and Pavle, like there's that Memphis fans completely outweighed the Iowa State fans, and that's kind of something that I thought was going to happen, but the atmosphere in terms of pictures and videos that I've seen of the 2017 Memphis Bowl definitely was not recreated at all on Friday.
Yeah, I like that you bring up the 2017 Liberty Bowl because it was, I mean, I saw the same pictures. We heard that it was packed as well, and that just didn't seem the case, and I don't know if it was just maybe fans weren't really wanting to watch another Memphis Iowa State Liberty Bowl, or maybe it was a little bit too cold. I mean, I think the weather was about the same as the last Liberty Bowl. It was raining a little bit too, so that could have gone into it. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of factors.
And you're also asking people to pretty much spend their Christmas down in Memphis away from home. I don't think there's a lot, like me personally, that's not something that my family would do, is just leave our family in Iowa to come down to Memphis for 4 or 5 days, whatever it's going to be. So, but you can't really blame it on the atmosphere entirely for how the offense and the defense performed. It was just really a battle of not being able to play a complete game of football, even with the offense doing well in the last 3 quarters.
Going back to the fans, like I got to give props to the fans, Iowa State fans that showed up, because before the game we got to do like a little media buffet thing with all the Iowa State fans that were there, and they filled up that entire venue, but still disproportionate to the Memphis fans. But yeah, major credits to Iowa State fans because they do travel, and the ones who did travel to this game, very dedicated.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, Iowa State did travel pretty well, and it wasn't just Iowa State was not showing out in that department, which didn't fill the stands. It was also Memphis too. I mean, it's at Memphis. You would expect maybe a little bit more there, but I mean, I think the total numbers at the end were around 40, like kind of low 40,000s to mid 40,000s for attendance, which kind of, I think it's probably around 80% full. But I mean, I was telling Logan in the box that from where we were sitting, it really didn't even look like 60% full at that, which, I mean, you kind of want to see a bowl game just have more atmosphere, even if that atmosphere does go in favor of Memphis.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's Iowa State, Memphis. Even when it was nationally broadcast on ESPN, you'd expect, I even, coming into this, I thought it was going to be, near full or, even full. Like, you saw, with Memphis, they have, a tall, towards their side that goes all the way up, and, by the side, or by the end zone is really, short and small. But, yeah, I mean, even, up there, when we're looking up from the press box, there's a lot of empty seats, and I was just kind of surprised, even if it was, kind of technically a Memphis home game because it was in their city.
Yeah, and then I think, we're kind of bashing on Memphis, kind of the atmosphere, but the venue, I mean, honestly, the people there were amazing. They were helpful when they could be. It was a little confusing. I think the stadium is, seems old. There's a lot of ways to get about in that stadium, so it is, I understand some of the confusion that maybe some of the people had, but everybody seemed to be willing to help, which was nice. And I mean, definitely not the worst press box I've been in. It was interesting, I'll say the least, but the view was still pretty good, able to do our job, so can't complain too much.
And talking about the press box, obviously we saw those chairs that were apparently leaking water, which is funny. All of a sudden we look at the floor, and even Logan's seat too was just dripping water. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's weird.
Yeah, my guess is that they left the chairs out when it rained, because it had been raining the last couple days, and then they just brought it in. I sat down and I stood up 20 minutes later, and there's a puddle of water under me. I was like, I don't think my shoes were that wet. I didn't know if my water bottle was leaking or whatever, but I agree with Christian. Definitely not the worst press box I've been in. Personally, I thought it was really cold. It was a little chilly for me in there, but but the people there were really nice, especially like when we were picking up our credentials and people telling us where to go. So, in terms of that, it was definitely like top tier for what I've experienced and among other communication departments. Not Iowa State, though, because they're amazing. Thanks, Siri.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about it being chilly. I actually like it pretty cold, but yeah, that was one complaint that we heard throughout the press box, that it was pretty freezing for a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people dressed for the occasion. I think we were maybe not expecting it to be almost the same temperature inside as outside, but when you're hot-blooded like me, you kind of like that, but I guess that's not for everybody.
Going back to the interaction we had with the credential pickup, I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he was so nice. He handed us our credentials. He was talking to us about how his son studied at Grinnell, I think, and then he gave us the bowl game gifts for the media. It was the little cup with the two teams on it and a T-shirt. They were all very big, but what are you gonna do? They only have so many larges and extra larges. But
not big for me though.
But yeah, I think it was a great time. I mean, for the photo room, it was actually toasty in there, so I got the better end of the deal when it comes to temperature of editing and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I think the venue. The Liberty Bowl has had issues before. Last year in the Kansas versus Arkansas game, there was no plumbing whatsoever in the entire building. So there was porta potties everywhere, and there was no running water. And I've heard firsthand from people at KU and fans from KU that it was not a pleasurable experience. So I'm glad that we had running water in this game.
Yeah, I was definitely glad for that. Would not have wanted to use the porta potty. Not the biggest fan of that, especially if we had to go all the way down to probably ground level to get to that, especially with how it was a little confusing. That was an excuse Siri there. A little confusing to get up and down to the press box. But I mean, one thing that, speaking of confusing, the parking, it did take a little bit to figure out where we were trying to go. I know we got a little turned around a few times there. I think, do we have to make a driver switch halfway through, or I don't think we did, but it was just it was pretty confusing.
No, but I did yell at Jacob because we had to go into the middle of the street to turn around, go to the other side of where the parking was, and your visual editor Jacob Rice does not know where to find the hazards on a car, and I got a little mad. I'd also not eaten yet in the morning, so I was very, very frustrated. No morning coffee as well. I just wanted to get in there. So, but I apologized to him after. But no driver switch, but the parking. If you want to try and find the silver lot at the Liberty Bowl Stadium without a map, good luck, because we couldn't do it even with a map.
Yeah, it took us at least 15 minutes, I want to say, once we got to the stadium.
Even one of the guys running parking, we even had to ask him for direction. He's like, I have no idea how to get there, and we're just sitting like, oh, okay. And plus a lot of barricades, blocking off the parking, which didn't help, which, yeah, it's all chaos.
I think we made about 4 or 5 U-turns just trying to find parking.
Yeah, but in the end we got there, and I guess that's all that really matters. I mean, plus the silver lot was, I think it was right next to the entrance for the press box too, which was pretty helpful, especially when we were leaving and it was pitch black and cold. Also when we were getting there and it was raining. But, I mean, that's beside the point. I feel like we got a little off track. Talking about the venue, we can also maybe, I think I'm good with the venue talk. I think we can move back into the game talk. I think the last thing that Logan had brought up was the offense and mainly the running game. And I know a lot of people are going to ask for questions about why the running game put up 0 points, or not 0 points, 0 yards. Yeah, 0 points and 0 yards, technically, yep. And, Abu Sama, who had that monstrous game against Kansas State, is barely able to get, it took him almost 10 rushes to get above 0 yards. It was just tackle for a loss, being stuffed. It was sacks just constantly throughout the game. And, we can talk about that. I think a lot of it did come down to the offensive line and, the schemes that Memphis was running on defense. There are a lot of things that we could talk about with the run game.
Yeah, I know. Abu Sama finished the game with 12 rushes for 4 yards, and he even had a long 7, but then, Christian said, he just kept getting blown up right away, going back for yardage. He found it really tough. I know the offensive line was kind of underwhelming today, on Friday. But, it worked well in the passing game at least, but the rushing just wasn't there.
Yeah, and after the game, when, obviously Matt Campbell was going to be asked about that was, they rushed less than they did against Texas, which is saying a lot considering Memphis going into the game was not a great rush defense, to be honest. They were over 100th in the nation in run defense. They let up a ton of yards in the run game, and you would think that Abu Sama would just eat there, but that was just not the case. And I think one big reason was because during bowl prep, they had a defensive coordinator change, and, Iowa State prepped for what they thought they would see, and then they didn't see that once. And I think that was what happened, some of the confusion with the run blocking kind of not looking great, and the holes not being there when they thought they would be, letting guys pass when they didn't think they'd be seeing those kind of schemes on the defensive line, and it was just a lot of confusion altogether.
Yeah, and honestly, making a switch at defense coordinator in the middle of bowl season, that's just crazy enough. But now that I think about it, what I'm sure what Memphis didn't want to get into was a shootout, because they just saw what Iowa State did against Kansas State in a shootout a month ago. And, Iowa State obviously getting the upper hand, and Memphis had they have a worse defense than a handful of the teams in the Big 12 that Iowa State's done pretty well against. So, I don't blame them for making the switch, and it obviously worked out in their favor.
Yeah, and I think you talk about they made the switch. They did what they needed to do, because I really think they went into that game with one goal in mind, and that was keep the run game quiet, keep Abu Sama behind the line of scrimmage. And, that worked. And you kind of saw on the other end that they really did just game plan around the run game, considering they kept the run game to 0 yards, and Rocco Becht had a historic night.
Yeah, Rocco Becht just completely went off on that game. He finished his game 22 for 38, 446 passing yards, and I can't remember what stat it was for Iowa State. I don't know if you know, Christian, for bowl history and stuff, but I know it's pretty high on that list for passing yards, at least, along with 3 passing touchdowns. And he just looked efficient. The main target obviously being Jaden Higgins, had almost half of Beck's passing yards, but he just obviously they prepared for the run, but they didn't prepare for Beck's passing ability, and it showed on Friday.
Yeah, I think what he ended with was second all-time in Liberty Bowl history for passing yards, and first all-time in Iowa State history in a bowl game, which I think was also the second most just by an Iowa State passer in a game, in any game. And the 3 touchdowns also tied Iowa State's record for the most passing touchdowns in a bowl game as well. So, Rocco Becht doing all he really could for that. And, after the game, they gave out awards, and, expectedly with the win, Seth Hennigan picked up the MVP of the game, but Rocco Becht picked up Iowa State's Outstanding Offensive Player Award, which was definitely very well deserved.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Rocco Becht I don't think anyone really expected him to go out there and perform this well. I know I obviously expected the run with the Busama, especially how well it was against Kansas State, and with Memphis, they've had a track record of giving up a lot of points. They even get up 50 points to South Florida back during their regular season. But yeah, I mean, Rocco Becht just I think he proved a lot this season. He's really grown as a passer, as a leader too as well. Just really commanding this offense, which really gives a lot of hope for the future.
And not only did Rocco just overall have a great game, but the big spots for me that stand out is he's making big plays on third downs, which as much as Memphis had big plays, so did Iowa State. Obviously, you talk about Jaden Higgins-Pavle. He had a couple catches over 40, 45 yards, whatever it was. But, he's a very precise passer now. He's grown a lot this season. And one thing they noted in the post-game press conference is that this isn't the excuse of a young offense isn't an excuse anymore. They're a veteran offense. I think that's going to help them out a lot this upcoming in 2024. So, very excited for that. But, Rocco literally had to put the game on his shoulders in a performance that I really haven't seen since the Brock Purdy days here.
Yeah, that was definitely the best he's played at Iowa State and might be the best he will play. I don't want to jinx him too soon, but hopefully we'll see more performances like that going forward. It's not a young team anymore, and that is for sure clear. And they've shown so much growth at this point that the offense, especially the passing game, look like they're veterans out there. And I talked about Beck's Outstanding Player Award. Obviously, Iowa State also had to have a Outstanding Defensive Player, and I think Pavle brought up Beau Freeler earlier with his 11 tackles. His 10 solo tackles also made history. It was the most in Iowa State Bowl history, and it broke the 9 that he set, his own record that he set in the Cheez-It Bowl 2 years ago, when I believe he was a freshman in that game playing some of his first meaningful snaps, which that game earned him the spot, and now this game has kind of proved why he has that spot. He's locked down. He's always locked in. He really plays the most consistent football on the defensive end, which Iowa State definitely needed against Memphis.
Yeah, I think just Beau Freeler, just even through their regular season, has just proven to be one of the bigger leaders on the team. He really controls that defense. He's really given all his heart out every game he plays. He got 11 today, broke his own record in the Cheez-It Bowl, and I know, he's got one more year of eligibility, so hopefully he sticks around to play another year for Iowa State, because I know he can only improve his play, and it's just only the beginning for what he could be.
Mm-hmm. He just seems to get better every single year, which is saying a lot considering how good he is currently. And I don't want to say the defense did a terrible job. I'm not going to bash them, because they did keep Memphis to 36 points, which I think a lot of people aren't realizing that is honestly not that many, considering that Memphis has put up quite a few points against a lot of teams. In the 3 games they lost, they still put up quite a few points. I think they put up, I want to say they put up 28 points against Missouri, either 28 or 21. And then they put up quite a few points against SMU too, and Tulane. So it wasn't necessarily the defense. The defense kind of did what you would expect a normal defense to do against Memphis. And I think we were kind of expecting Iowa State's defense to lock in a little more. But the offense, it is kind of weird that the offense only scored 26 points despite Rocco Becht throwing for nearly 450 yards.
Yeah, obviously going back to the run game, it was not there. But yeah, it was a little odd just to see, off the first quarter, 19-0. You'd at least expect to score them at least, at least a field goal, a couple field goals, maybe one by Chase Contreras, or even a touchdown. But nothing happened in that first quarter. It was just very underwhelming. But obviously that you saw the second quarter is really where they started to pick it up, keep it close. They haven't got within 6 of Memphis before that fake spike towards the end of the second quarter ended up getting them a field goal to end it, to bring them up to 9. But, it just really could have been more from what they've gotten offensively is what we've seen this season, and just couldn't get it done.
I think it started to, you bring up the first quarter with maybe some questionable play calling decisions. Maybe it wasn't so much as maybe we should abandon the run immediately because it's not working. I do think they should have kept pounding the run for at least the first 2 quarters, which they kind of did for the first 3.5 quarters. But I think it really started with the turnover on downs on Iowa State's first drive. They had a 4th and 1, I think, in their own territory, and they decided to run it up the middle with Becht, I want to say. And, that was kind of a head-scratching call because your offense is not running the ball well. The offensive line was struggling at that point. You see that Sama can't even move the ball, so you're going to put it in the hands of Becht, who really didn't. He did what he could, but they got back to him immediately, and yeah, definitely a head-scratching call.
And not only do they run that, they run that play with Becht too. Okay, if you have Hunter Deckers back there, or even a Brock Purdy, a bigger quarterback to run it up, I could maybe see it. Take away that, you don't even have a good run game, but to run a 4th and 1 play out of shotgun with a quarterback keeper, that was the big thing to me. And I was looking at Christian when they were lining up, like, oh, they're just trying to get a hard count, whatever, like, they're not going to run a play here. And they do run a play out of shotgun, and I believe they had 2 running backs in the backfield, both Sama and Hansen. And yeah, it just blew my mind that they did that, and that kind of squandered an opportunity to, at that point they were probably still down. Would you say it was their first drive or second? At least just make a statement. In your first drive, you give up downs in favorable field position for Memphis, which they obviously scored on.
Yeah, obviously we talk about a weird play. Even thought it was weird too, sitting up with Christian Logan in the press box. Just like, obviously talked about the offensive line. Maybe they could have done a little bit better blocking. I saw maybe because some guys got through to Becht, but still that's even a head scratching call by offensive coordinator Nate Scheelhaas. And I was just wondering why they'd even do that, but obviously saw it didn't work.
Yeah, I like the idea to go for it on 4th down. It was just, as Logan said, lining up Becht and shotgun and attempting just to punch it up the middle. I think you could have honestly just quarterback dived it and had more success than you found with that play call. I think, they've had quite a few tricky 4th down plays or 3rd down plays that have worked. I think going to one of those might have been the better option. And then when that doesn't work, like Logan said, they give up a touchdown after that. You're now down 14-0, as opposed to just kicking the field, or I guess you couldn't kick the field goal, but pinning your opponent in unfavorable positions and giving your defense a chance to get going, giving them a chance to get some momentum, because you put them in a very unfavorable position immediately after they give up a big play for a touchdown, and you're pretty much just, cutting any of their chances of doing well throughout the game. At that point, you've now helped your defense give up a 2nd touchdown in a row, and they're going to have a hard time getting their heads back up, getting back into the game.
Yeah, and obviously, it showed after the first quarter, obviously nothing worked, and then started to pick it up. Not enough, because even then, even in the second quarter, the defense really stepped it up too. They only held Memphis to that half-ending field goal off that fake spike or whatever it was that really surprised the defense. But obviously, yeah, the defense stepped it up. Not really in some plays in the third quarter, another big play, a 48-yard pass from Hennigan. But even then, the defense started to realize maybe Freeler, I don't know if you saw Jacob from the side, who's really stepped up after the first quarter, and just really saw that change during the game.
Yeah, and you bring up the fake kneel, and I've talked to a few people about how I feel on that. I'm not a big fan of fake kneeling. It's part of the game. It worked for them, but I think Iowa State was just kind of ready to go to the half. I think they were expecting that Memphis was ready too, and that ended up, turning I think it was a 19-13 game into a 22-13 game. So, instead of being a one-score game, they got it out of a one-score game, and from there, Iowa State really hasn't done a great job coming back from big deficits, and entering the half, they were at a big deficit. So definitely not favorable for them, especially in that second half, which really started kind of the same as the first half, with another big Memphis play, as Pavle said.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State even won the coin toss in the beginning, deferred to the second half, and even when the second half, even though they were down 9, like, they still could have had a chance to drive down the field, maybe get a field goal or a touchdown to bring the lead even closer, to bring it to a one-score game. And obviously you saw right away, punted back to Memphis, and they capitalized right off that. They scored the next 2 times, which really just put Iowa State in an even bigger hole. It was about 23-point lead they had after that 48-yard touchdown, like midway through the third quarter, and just really saw it kind of dug them in to the point where they couldn't come back in the end.
Yeah, I think I wrote about it in my column, is they really were never in contention to win. I mean, every time, you think that they come back and their hopes are alive, their offense is moving, but really they cut the lead to 6 there right before the half, but then they enter half down 2 possessions. They were really down by 2 possessions the entire game, and you just really you can't do that in a bowl game, and you can't do that if there's only 4 quarters in a game, and they were really playing like there was 5 or there's 6. They were playing as if they could come back eventually, but they've ran out of time a lot during the season, and this was another time where it was just too little too late for them to get anything going.
I think personally, once they went down by 2 touchdowns and, the offense is just still not moving, I knew personally that this is not a game that not even Iowa State, but just Matt Campbell in general does not win. It's easy to say every team plays well when they have a lead, but Matt Campbell has never really proven that he can consistently win from behind, especially down multiple scores. So, he can go shot for shot, put it within 6, and even at the end of the game, put it within 10. But, I just knew that this was not a game that Matt Campbell was capable of winning. And, I think he responded well after going down 19 in the first quarter. But obviously having to rely on Rocco, a redshirt freshman quarterback, to put the whole team on his shoulders. And he did a great job doing that. But, what you can't ask him to do anymore, because he was literally doing everything for the offense.
Going to a field perspective, the energy from players and coaches was just weird. Obviously with the 19-point lead in the first quarter, everyone's energy is going to be a bit down because, they're getting throttled in the first quarter, and you have to make up for that. And as much as they tried to make up for that, it just was not there. And I think during the third quarter, I was hanging by the bench just watching players, trying to get photos, and people were just sitting there quietly. No one was hyping each other up. Coaches were having a hard time keeping the attention of players in the huddles. And I don't know, maybe it was just having a complete Iowa State team on the field all bunched together, but it just didn't seem like they believed that they would win during, that third quarter when things were starting to die down energy-wise. I felt like Iowa State, and this might be a bold claim, the Iowa State players, to me, looked like they had already kind of given up in putting out energy to each other towards the end of the game.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like that too, from the way they were playing on the field. Don't want to, I know that they work really hard, and they really do preach that they are in every game and they want to win every game, but it is hard to stay motivated if you're down by that much and you've really barely seen a glimmer of hope in the entire game. But maybe the month, we were talking about this yesterday, maybe the month off was a bad thing. Maybe I think if Iowa State had come out after that Kansas State game and played Memphis, they'd have a better shot at it. But having that month off and then immediately just really getting throttled in the first quarter, I mean, it just kind of felt like they were playing catch-up, and at some point when you play catch-up for 3 quarters, 4 quarters, you kind of just want to go home. And I really do think that they just wanted to go home.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, you're talking about Christian, like having a month off of football, even after that big win against Kansas State in Manhattan, doesn't help. I mean, yeah, obviously, I agree with him too. Like if they played like a week, maybe even 2 weeks after like smaller amount of time between games, like they would have probably had a better chance to win. But even then, and still, plus going to play the home team, even though we were technically called the home team, but we were not, just doesn't help, and obviously contributed to it on Friday.
And then, I mean, motivation-wise, you go down early. I'm sure to them it kind of felt like a smack in the face, like, oh, this is not the team that they were expecting to play. And like you said, I brought it up to you. If they play this team right after the Kansas State game a week later, confidence is at an all-time high. Oh, this is a team from the American Conference. So what? They've scored close to 40 points a game, whatever. We're going to go smack them. But ultimately, it didn't go their way, first of all. And like you said, Christian, it's just hard to stay motivated when, you go into a game expecting one thing and you get another, even after the first 15 minutes.
It really felt like the Ohio game again, and, not necessarily in the outcome on the field. Obviously it's a loss still, but their defense let up more points in this game. Their offense scored more points in this game. But it really felt like Ohio because I think they expected to win. I think they went into Memphis expecting to repeat the 2017 Liberty Bowl. I think they expected to be the better team. They, obviously the spread favored them. They were expected to win by 2 scores, and then they go in there and they go down by 3 scores, and they end up losing by pretty much what their spread was expected them to win. So I think it was kind of that similar thing as I think they underestimated their opponent a little bit too much. I think Memphis, obviously props to Memphis, they have one of the best offenses in the league. They'll run 5 wide on you. They will hit you with big plays. They will, take off big chunks of yardages through the air. They'll just kind of beat you down on defense, and they'll just keep just testing you and finding cracks. And they did that in Iowa State. They had to have seen that on film, and they just expected that they would figure out how to deal with it. And I think, they didn't.
And I know I'm not going to blame all of the defensive performance on this one person, but going back to TJ Tampa, he elected to not play in this game to keep him healthy and help us improve his stock potentially for the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. And obviously, they really underestimated Memphis. Their American Conference, they're kind of on the down low. They haven't really been huge. I know because they got SMU and Tulane in their conference. They're just better teams. They lost to both those teams, and even then, even look at their receiving. 3 receivers got at least 75 yards receiving. Their leading one is Rock Taylor, 8 receptions, 102 yards, and that was a big problem. I know TJ Tampa would definitely help keep that number down.
Yeah, and I like that you bring up Tampa because, I do respect his decision to opt out, prepare for the draft, not test anything. You definitely don't want to get injured, especially if you're one of the higher, projected draft picks. I would say he's probably a top 5 corner coming out of this draft. He's most likely going to fall in day 2, which is something that you want to keep, so there is benefit to him opting out. And although Campbell said before the game, a week before, or a week or 2 before that, TJ hadn't told him yet if he was going to opt out, and he was kind of waiting for those conversations to begin, you had to have expected that Campbell knew. You would expect that Campbell was kind of expecting Tampa to opt out because Campbell's been through this before. He's coached a lot of really good players, a lot of really good high draft stock players, and you expect that Tampa's going to be one of the guys that opts out. And I don't think it should have caught them as off guard as it did.
And it kind of reminded me of when Jairell Brock had to step in for Breece Hall in the Cheez-It Bowl. Jairell, he was fine in that. That was like his first game I think it was his first game as a starter in the backfield. But it reminded me of obviously if you have Breece Hall, that's another part of your offense that you're missing. TJ Tampa, same thing. It's a part of your defense that you wish he's back there. Maybe it makes it less painful for you in the secondary throughout the whole game. And but one guy's name that I didn't really hear called a lot was Jeremiah Cooper, who I thought was prepped for a big game to, maybe they were going to look his way again because, a lot of these ball hawk guys, they get looked at, but, they get picks. Cooper didn't really make a ton of big plays. No one in the secondary really did, but regardless, like you said, TJ sitting out, not a huge surprise, but, afterwards you kind of think, well, would it be different if TJ Tampa did play?
Yeah, and you bring it to Cooper too. I think, Cooper played decent. He just didn't really play like the Cooper we'd seen before the injury. I think after that injury, he's kind of taken a little bit more. He obviously hasn't been 100%. He's taken kind of a backseat a few times. And he was 100% healthy this game, and he looked decent, but he wasn't really doing, I guess, what we would expect Jeremiah Cooper to do. And maybe that's because our expectations are now a little bit too high of him to just be that crazy good safety like he was earlier, But I think, the loss of Tampa, and I know Campbell has been saying Malik Verdun is questionable too. I think their losses were felt because there was just a lot of guys that had to step up, and they have stepped up previously, but they really haven't had to step up without Tampa's leadership on the field. And, maybe this is good growth game for Cooper and Freeler and the rest of the defensive backs to just, this is going to be obviously the team that they're going to see going forward. They're not going to have Tampa next year. So this was a good start for them, although it didn't really go the way that they probably would have liked. I think it really shows them what they need to work on, what went well, what didn't go well, and should bode well for the future.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to your point, Christian, about Jeremiah Cooper and his injury, I really think when he did get injured, that kind of changed his season for him. Injuries can be nagging sometimes. I don't know if his did. I'm not for sure on that. I don't really know, but either way, I know his production kind of slowed down just a little bit ever since he came back from injury. And yeah, even talking about the other defensive backs that were to step up in TJ's absence, we expected guys like Darian Porter or Jameson Patton to even step up for his absence. I know they kind of did when Jeremiah was hurt, but obviously it didn't show on Friday and we could have used. But they can still for next season, which, yeah.
And Miles Purchase was another guy that I was thinking of. Just people that they've played snaps throughout the season. They've had some meaningful minutes. I think Ben Nickel got quite a few snaps as well. There were good plays here and there. There was just maybe a lot. It definitely did look like a young defense out there, which maybe the youth is now shifting from the offense, which was the big thing throughout the entire season, was the youth of the offense. Maybe it's shifting to the defense now, and it's going to be these defensive backs that we kind of expected that room to be veteran this entire year, and they have been pretty good. But now there's a lot of new guys that have to start stepping up, and this was kind of the good first step for them.
And I think also you lose a lot of depth in the transfer portal with, there was a couple guys in the secondary that we knew were going to be missing this game, looking for other options. But I like how you talk about switching over from, the youth of the offense is now the youth of the defense, because the offense outside of the running game looked great. I've talked a lot about Rocco, but if they're going to keep guys like Jalen Knoll, Jaden Higgins, and a guy that we had not seen any really action from, Benny Nagohi, who has an amazing catch on the sideline, again from a great throw by Rocco down the sideline. They had to go to review for it. Great catch. So I think, you have good veteran pieces on the offense right now, and even better, you have potential for guys, down the depth on the depth chart that can come up and, play in great spots for an offense that is now a veteran offense, not having to rely on an excuse of being young and still learning the playbook and whatnot.
And I want to go back to maybe that young defense, and I think I do want to give a lot of credit to Memphis and Seth Hennigan. They did a really good job of really keeping Iowa State's defensive line down too. I think there was a lot of pressure on Seth Hennigan. Guys like J.R. Singleton and Dom Orange were getting back there really consistently. They were stopping the run at time. I mean, we saw some stuffs on third down, like short. Iowa State turned the ball over on downs too, or caused Memphis to turn the ball over on downs on a short fourth down run because they were able to get through the line. And I think they put pressure. They kind of did what they needed to do up front. But, I mean, Seth Hennigan was just doing his job, finding plays down the field, extending plays with his legs, and keeping the ball safe, which really ended up being one of the deciding factors because I think Iowa State's defense was expecting to go into that maybe getting some turnovers, getting to Seth Hennigan, stopping some drives before they got too long, and just Memphis' ability to keep the ball safe, limit the big negative plays, and keep drives going was really a big factor in how they consistently put up points throughout the game.
Adding to that, this doesn't reflect on Iowa State at all, but this is just an observation I made about Memphis. Their quarterback commands that offense. Like, he truly, I feel like he has the complete trust of every person on the line, every person on the bench, all the coaches. He has such a confidence in himself that I think when Hennigan was at the line of scrimmage and he was just communicating the offense, the way he did it looked like a veteran quarterback. It looked like an NFL quarterback. It looked like someone who obviously has played many snaps and is confident that they can make any play happen with 100% confidence. And I think that reflected in how the game went. His confidence directly affected his team. His confidence directly affected all the plays he made, all those big plays that he made. And I don't know, I feel like to see that type of confidence come from Rocco Becht could greatly change the outcome of games like this in the future.
Yeah, I agree, Jacob. Seth Hennigan's third year now, or ending his third season as a Memphis Tiger, and he really did take command of that offense. Like, even in his past two seasons, like, he's been helping. He's been one of the main factors of Memphis' success. Obviously, he completed 70% of his passes, which really give problem almost just above 360 yards passing, and with this 4 touchdowns, I would have liked to see that from Rocco Becht, and I think we could coming into next season with his performance on Friday. But, yeah, I can see great things from Seth Hennigan just going forward, too.
Yeah, there's a reason that he won MVP of the game. There's a reason that he won Outstanding Offensive Player for Memphis. He was commanding the offense, and it worked. It wasn't even just the passing plays. He was doing a good job reading the defenses, making sure the play actions were going, making sure the run game was working when it needed to, and extending plays with his own legs. I mean, I think he had a rushing touchdown himself up the middle there early on, which contributed to that 19-0 start for them. So it really was just kind of a clinic by Seth Hennigan, and I think Rocco Becht did his own job, doing what he could with what he had. But yeah, I just think Seth Hennigan was able to confidently put up more points on the board than Rocco Becht was. And that's nothing against Rocco Becht. I think he was confident in his own ways. It would have helped to maybe have something to pair alongside that really big passing game. All right, so I think we've talked a good amount about the game, so that's probably good on the football talk for now. We'll go a little bit back to the trip down. I know we touched on quite a few things. We, really wasn't a super eventful trip to Memphis, but I mean, we got there, and I know we had some mixed opinions on the Airbnb situation. Obviously, it's nice for somebody to to let us stay in their home, but I guess what were our thoughts on that?
I can go first. So I think everyone can agree on this. It was pretty cold in there. Just pretty cold. The floors were slick.
I almost fell a few times.
Yeah, everyone was slipping around in there. I think the beds were not very comfortable. My shoulders are still kind of sore from that. But, it's obviously, we appreciate being able to stay relatively close to where we're working. And it's definitely a lot cheaper than getting hotel rooms at the media hotel. But yeah, I think in general, not the worst. It's definitely not a Kansas City Airbnb for the Big 12s. That was disgusting.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. The one we stayed in Kansas City was not in the best part of Kansas City, I will say that. There were a few nights that I did fear for my life, but it wasn't too bad. I think I had to sleep on the couch, which I didn't. I got the master bedroom in this Airbnb, which is funny that they had really like a lot of different. They had one big master bedroom, and then kind of a guest bedroom off the side, and then one bedroom with 2 beds in it. So a lot of variety. My bed felt like I was sleeping on a cement slab, but honestly, I kind of like that. I mean, I had a good night's sleep. It was really the pillow that was the issue. Felt like they stuffed it themselves with maybe a little bit of cotton swabs and some newspaper, but wasn't too bad.
I know for me, piggybacking what off Jacob was saying about the beds, they were basically the bed option I had. It looked like just a little like slab, like what Chris was talking about, and that was not good for me. So I decided to just hop on the couch in the living room, which is kind of nice. I mean, I'll admit it was kind of rough to wake up in the mornings to the sunroofs glowing in the light, which kind of sucked. To then have my own room to close the curtains or whatever, but it was a good experience in the Airbnb, I would say. Not too far out from the game, the city. Didn't have to fear for my life, I don't think, because it was like in a nice neighborhood, and it seemed like with all the Christmas lights and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it was an overall good time, just having that.
And, I had the guest bedroom with the 1 bed, and my bed I thought was fine, but really my problem was with the sheets, where it seemed like if I tugged them just a centimeter, they flew over my feet. Definitely some of the slickest sheets that I have slept in. But for me personally, actually, I thought the instructions for leaving were pretty simple, just to turn the air off and put the keys back where we found them. We didn't have to wash the sheets or do anything like that, so I was pretty surprised by that. But overall, I mean, we probably only, other than sleeping, we probably only hung out there for a total of like 4 or 5 hours, just not really doing anything. But overall, Airbnb, I mean, it was probably I'm going to say this, probably the most mid Airbnb I've ever stayed in. Yeah,
I mean, you said it there. Like, we only spent a couple hours there outside of sleeping, so you really can't ask for more than just beds and a TV. It's really all you want out of an Airbnb, or at least as like sports journalist, that's all you really need.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think it was mid. I'd probably put it around like 3 stars if I had to give it a star rating, but I might bump it up to 3.5 because I did get my own bathroom, so that was kind of nice. Didn't have to share with the boys.
Yeah,
so.
Us 3 had to share one bathroom while Christian got his. I know he said the bed and the pillows weren't to his liking, but still getting his own bathroom and stuff must have been nice. Having us 3 to share a shower wasn't even too bad. I mean, one complaint I had about the shower is the shower handle itself. There's nothing to prop it up with. That sucked. I had to hold it while I washed myself, and it was kind of an inconvenience to what I'm used to.
Yeah, we didn't really. I never even talked about that to you guys. Like, the shower head, it was like, in some bathrooms now, or some showers now, you can like detach it off the holder and kind of get some special areas if you want. But for this one, it was just hanging. You had to, I mean, and you couldn't just like set it down and then have the water like face you, whatever. It started going everywhere on the floor and whatnot. So. You literally have to put it between your legs while you put the soap in your hand. It was just, I mean, it was like I'm scratching my belly and rubbing my head at the same time.
Yeah, when I first turned on the faucet, it was facing me outside of the shower. So when I turned it on, I didn't check it, and it just sprayed me, and it got all over the floor. I had to like use my towel to clean everything up. It was so inconvenient. And then the thing hanging on the shower head that holds like the soap wasn't attached to anything, so it kept falling off, and all the bottles would fall. It was a hassle to shower.
Yeah, even one time I showered, it's so dumb. Like the metal thing hanging there, the little bar of soap and some little bottles of shampoo, whatever. I didn't touch them, so I had my own stuff. But either way, I tried to move the shower handle one way, all of a sudden, right on my feet. I'm like, oh my god, like that was not a fun showering experience. Which credit to what Christian said about the overall rating, I'd probably give it about the same, about a 3 maybe, because of that and about the bed situation, at least for me, having to sleep on the couch. But the couch is fine. But yeah, fun experiences at the Airbnb in Memphis.
Yeah, I did not have to deal with the same shower situation as you guys, so that's for sure. Mine was honestly pretty good. It was a really high water pressure too, so I had a really good deep clean, you know. We're good temperature, you know. My own. I had 2 sinks to myself out there in my bedroom, so you know I was really living like a king. Props to being the sports editor, I guess. But I mean, besides that, I think the rest of our Memphis trip was pretty solid. We talked a little bit about the nice, I guess, just the niceness of the people. You know, everybody was super kind to us, especially when we were getting our credentials. I think it was Harold that was there greeting us and gave us good story, really gave us a good welcome to Memphis. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you guys, I felt pretty good about just the atmosphere as a whole when we were there. It seemed like everything was ran pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, thinking of Memphis beforehand, going there, like, I didn't have the best thoughts going into it, you know. Maybe like a Kansas City type of thing. Like, I'm not really, I don't know. But either way, I think Harold really handled it well, the whole entire, like, just the entirety of the bowl game, you know, to handle everything. Like, even when we saw, he was such a nice guy, too. He's told us good stories. Like, even, I think a couple of us saw him when we were going up to the press box, give us fist bumps, like, right below the elevator that takes you up to the press box. Like, I give major props to Harold, you know, everyone there working the Memphis game, just an overall great experience with just the hospitality and stuff. I was really happy about that.
Yeah, not only that, going down to Memphis, obviously, we'll move a bit into some food talk, because obviously I know I'm a big food advocate. I do like to eat, you know, not just to survive. And Memphis has some pretty good barbecue, and they brought it out. You know, we went to a place the day we got there to Memphis, and then they had some barbecue for us in the press box. So, I mean, I don't know what were your guys' favorite meals, I guess, that you had there? I
mean, obviously, let's start with the barbecue place that we got there the night of when we arrived to Memphis. I mean, I'd like to say that I chose most of the food places for everyone. I was kind of the guy to look up the food places, along with help from Logan and everyone else, too. I'm not going to knock that. But, yeah, I mean, I really liked the barbecue at that one place. I don't remember the name because I don't want to... Jim and Nick's. Yeah, thank you, Christian. Yeah, Jim and Nick's was good. They had some good barbecue, and they had, I know he's talking about, like, the barbecue they served at the game. Like, they even had the pregame buffet, which you're talking about. They packed, like, the big warehouse full of Iowa State fans, therefore, like, that was okay compared to Jim and Nick's. But then, like, during the game, like, up in the press box, the barbecue somehow was even better than the one downstairs before the game, which is kind of weird, but I'm glad we still had that because got a better experience from that barbecue than we did earlier.
Yeah, I mean, Jim and Nick's, the only knock on them is when we got there, they were out of ribs. And for me, I'm not a huge barbecue fan in general, but I was going to try some ribs out there. That was not applicable for them. So I had some pork, which was really good. And at the game, the best thing that they had there, the chicken and the pork that they had there, and the beans. I don't usually eat beans either, but also their banana pudding that they had was, I mean, as close to a 10 as you can get for me desserts wise.
Yeah, I was a big fan of, you guys were talking about the mac and cheese at Jim and Nick's. I got the mac and cheese with the pulled pork on top for my main dish, and that was pretty good, I'll be honest. I do love some good mac, and that was good mac. And then at the stadium, obviously we didn't have the best quality stuff at the giant buffet, but that's to be expected. They're serving quite a few people, so they kind of just have to get stuff out. But in the press box, I was a big fan of that chicken. I was able to get my protein in. Always love that. And get some really good barbecue along the way. I am a really big bean guy, so those baked beans, they put some pulled pork in there. Seemed like they slow cooked them too. That was really good. And then, gosh, that banana pudding, I'm going to be thinking about that. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. It was just,
I think the highlight for me was post Liberty Bowl game. There was ice cream in the press box, and I snagged a couple ice cream sandwiches to be specific, and those were truly amazing. And also Jim and Nick's, I did not get barbecue, which I regret. I just got like a turkey sandwich with coleslaw. Yeah, I got coleslaw on the side and I put it on the sandwich. It was pretty good. It was definitely pretty dry, but I can't complain. It was still like good quality. Definitely should have got like the mac and cheese with pulled pork on it though. That sounded amazing.
Definitely after during the breast box too, it was nice to have that ice cream because I know we were kind of like struggling towards the end of the game. I know the food there, like the buffet stuff where it's served early, I know they had it during the game too, but like we were really looking forward to finishing up our content, getting out of there just to go eat, which we did at a Whataburger, which is one of the few places that was open later at night because I don't remember what time we get there, like 9, 10ish by the time we were done with all our content and stuff. And I've never had Whataburger at all in my life, and I really enjoyed it, honestly.
Yeah, it was super high quality. Well,
it was super high quality. I don't know.
It was high quality for like fast food, and heavenly experience. I got the jalapeno burger single with the vanilla milkshake, and that was great. Not a fan of the spicy ketchup, but everything else was good about Whataburger.
Yeah, I'm a big Whataburger advocate. I do travel to the South a good amount to see some of my family, and I do always try to get to a Whataburger because that is definitely one of my favorite fast food chains. So I'm glad that the boys enjoyed it too, especially Pavle on his first time. I know he was really excited to eat it, and I'm glad he enjoyed it because, yeah, I do love putting people onto it.
And, for me on this trip, I feel like for a lot of people, you're coming around the New Year's. Some people want to get in better shape. That's something that I'm trying to do. And let me tell you, it was a bad time for me to make that decision going down to Memphis, having a ton of burgers, chicken, pulled pork. But, I think to quote Barstool Big Cat, diet starts on Tuesday. And today's Sunday, Sunday. So we'll see what happens. It's Saturday? What day is it?
It's Saturday.
It's Saturday. But also the highlight for me, honestly, was our last meal that we just had was Shake Shack because, I dropped a pretty penny there, but that was probably the best food I had all weekend. I had only had Shake Shack. I think honestly that was my first time going there. I can't remember the other time I'd ever went. So that was amazing. I opted into getting a chocolate shake this time because I did not at Whataburger and everyone else did. And it was, incredible food on this trip in general. And my stomach will definitely be mad at me for the next couple days, but we'll see what happens in 2024.
I do like that you brought up Shake Shack because that was also my first time going there. And fun fact about me is I am a huge burger guy. So that was on my, what do they call it? On my burger bucket list. And I loved it. That was exactly what I like in a burger is just meat, some American cheese, a little bit of secret sauce or whatever on a Martin potato roll. And that was probably the best fast food burger I've ever eaten. I will say that.
Wow. I know with Christian too, I was really looking forward to try Whataburger for the first time. I had an opportunity down when I was in Texas as a vacation, but we never went. But now getting to try, I wouldn't say it's the best fast food burger like he's claiming for Shake Shack, for either Whataburger or Shake Shack, but it was good to try Whataburger for the first time. It was a good burger. I really liked it, and Shake Shack's too, but I really wanted to go back to this morning, actually, because before we stopped in somewhere in Missouri, close to the St. Louis area for Shake Shack, we decided to go to Waffle House right before we decided to hit the road. And I had never been there before, and it was a nice experience, but I definitely don't want to remember the post-experience of Waffle House, that's for sure.
Yeah, I am... as much of an advocate as I am for Whataburger, I am more of an advocate for Waffle House because I love Waffle House. If there is one in the area of where I'm traveling, I will make sure to go because not only is it's affordable food, it's really solid food, but the vibes there are just immaculate. It's just such a fun time just being there, seeing what's going to happen. I mean, there's always something that goes on when you're at Waffle House.
And every time we travel somewhere, we always try to stop at Waffle House. And every time I've gone to a football game this year, I always go to Waffle House. And, the food's consistent. It's not going to be, the best breakfast you've ever had, but the environment, the service. But I don't know, the environment in Waffle House is just great. And you can't go wrong with some hash browns, eggs, and a waffle.
Shout out to the waitress that let me take the coffee mug because I really liked it. I love me some coffee in the morning at my place in Ames, and my only 2 mugs right now are Christmas mugs from forever ago, and the design of the coffee mug at Waffle House was amazing. I offered to pay for it, but she told me to just take it. So I swapped that thing, and it's going in my, small collection of coffee mugs.
Yeah, and the service was obviously good enough. I mean, I always love the service that Waffle House gives you. They're honestly super nice people, really make you feel at home. I know my favorite Waffle House story, I was down in Florida once. I went to a Waffle House, and gosh, it was probably either really early in the morning or really late at night, and their waffle maker wasn't working. It was putting out kind of rough-looking waffles, and the lady that was serving us, she just kept feeding me until I was full. She let me pay for 1 waffle, and that was it. And I think I ate probably 9 of them. She was like, every time she'd bring them out, she'd be like, oh, that one doesn't look good either. And she'd yell at the guy in the back to go make me 2 more. And I just kept eating. And I mean, that's the service you'll get at Waffle House. They make you feel at home, and it's a good time.
Definitely this Waffle House trip ranked on like top 3 out of all my Waffle House experiences.
Yeah, I'd put it top 3 as well.
Top 1 because it's my only one. But yeah, it was a good time. I know, like they're talking about the service. I know the lady who's serving us called us honey and sweetheart and all that. Just be nice. There weren't any like big things going on at the Waffle House, which is nice from what I've heard of.
Sometimes Waffle Houses can get crazy.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes they can get a little rowdy, from what I've heard. So I was kind of coming in there just with a little bit of I don't know, just a little bit of what to expect, but it wasn't at all what I expected. It was just really nice, really good food, and yeah. Yeah,
that's what I tend to get from Waffle Houses. It's a good atmosphere, Even I do kind of wish I would see some of those brawls in the back, but it might be a different atmosphere. But I mean, we take what we can get, and we got some good service, some good food.
Yeah, I was hoping to catch a plate, but instead we got no plates thrown at us.
Yep, no plates this time. But we'll move off the food talk. I mean, we're still chugging along on the way back. It's been, not as eventful as the way there. Really not much to talk about on the drive. I mean, once you take it once, it's really just the same thing again. So, I think we're kind of excited to get back, excited because the football season is over. And, I mean, there's a lot to kind of reminisce on what the season was because, I mean, going into the season, I think we were expecting quite a different outcome than what we got.
Yeah, I agree. Coming into the football season, you had the gambling allegations against some of the players, and then, of course, with the younger part of the team, with some of the players leaving for other stuff, whether it may be from the NFL or anything else, part of their journey, just had no eligibility. But either way, he's finishing was 7-6, including the bowl game. Just like a phenomenal job by Matt Campbell to be able to lead his team to such even above 500 record. I know my preseason record predictions, I had us, I think, going the same as what we were last year, about 4-8, because just of what was going on and everything. Like I didn't have much optimism. Having Rocco start, I was kind of like a little shaky because his first appearance was in that TCU blowout game where we got spanked, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of what this team has done this season, and it gives me a lot of hope for next season.
Yeah, I think I went into it with kind of similar hopes. I projected them maybe at 5 wins max. I didn't think they would get to a bowl game after last year. I was one that I did not have really any faith in Rocco Beck, just because I'd covered the team last year. I'd seen his only meaningful snaps, and I really wasn't super impressed. I mean, you look at the non-conference season this year, and it really did take him a little bit to get comfortable, and it really proved a lot of people wrong, especially me. And I think that bodes well for the future, because Iowa State was in a weird spot of Brock Purdy's gone, and now Hunter Deckers is not on the team, and they're like, who's going to be the next guy? Who's going to be the next Brock Purdy that's going to lead us to success? And it turned out to be Rocco Becht, and I think that's obviously a good thing for the team going forward.
And, credit obviously to the young guys stepping up, but I think this is something that, obviously in preseason I had us going 7-5, which, not to toot my own horn, but I did get right in the regular season. I just kind of had faith on Matt Campbell being able to really turn the program around again after a rough season. People forget that. I mean, looking at the 2017 Liberty Bowl season, the year before that, pretty similar, just not good. A young team. Matt Campbell really was his first couple of years taking the reins of the program. And, as someone who's won Big 12 Coach of the Year, 2-3 times, whatever it is, he's proven again that he knows how to turn a program around. And I think, it took a little time, obviously, Christian mentioned, in non-conference, but they really bought into it. And, there obviously are going to be some games that stick out to me. TCU, a game that, I think I predicted us to win, but to be honest with you, didn't have confidence in. Obviously, going to Kansas State, going to Cincinnati, having them get their first conference road win in almost 2 years. I mean, it was just, in a meaningful season, even though it was just 7-6.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really all you can ask for from Campbell, is him to turn around a 1-win conference season into not only a bowl game berth, but a 7-win season. I mean, yeah, 8 wins would have been nice to get to, but you look at this team a year ago, and that team, I mean, it was like almost, they lost some starters, but they really did just rely on, I guess, Campbell's message to the team. You talked about them buying in, and it really seemed that during the conference play they bought in. And going forward, they're keeping a lot of the same pieces, especially on offense. The offense looks about the exact same as, it is the same as the offense that beat Kansas State, and the defense is, they're losing Gary Vaughn and they're losing TJ Tampa, but besides that, a lot of those really good pieces are going to be coming back. And a lot of them are geared up for really a solid offseason. I mean, they've been talking about it, and I think a loss against Memphis will really fuel them going into the offseason, really spark something in them, because going out on a loss, it does leave a bad taste in the team's mouth, but I think that bad taste almost brings more motivation than a win might. And I know that's might be a hot take, but I do think this will be a good kick in the butt for the team to keep growing and getting better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even going back to what Christian said about during the season, even when that huge win against BYU that kind of clinched our bowls appearance for the season, going into the game against Texas and Kansas State, I thought we were just going to lose out, go 6-6 heading into the bowl game. Okay, cool, we get to go in a bowl game. But obviously Texas didn't go our way, but Kansas State was just amazing to see them to go play in the snow again and just end up pulling out in the shootout that was in Manhattan. So, yeah, I really think that this future is really bright for this team. like we mentioned earlier, like this is not a young team anymore. This is now a veteran, experienced team after going through a full season together, and I'm excited for next season.
Yeah, and you talk about that Texas game. I think there was a really good stretch where they were genuinely being considered in the conversation for a Big 12 championship, or at least competing for one. And that's saying a lot for where the team is at. And I think we talk to the players a lot, and they've really been pounding away at their goal, and they do believe that they're good enough to be high ranked, to win the Big 12, which, I mean, yes, now that Texas and Oklahoma are gone, it's going to be a little bit more open, but it's still a tough conference to win. There's a lot of really good teams that are still in the conference, and Iowa State really wants to be one of those really good teams.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was surprised, too, to see we're still in contention for the Big 12 championship game, like, I mean, obviously, the Texas game really did it in for us. Like, I know we kept it somewhat close in parts, but, like, still couldn't get it done. But even, like, having last season, going 4-8 and just, like, all hopes are down, like, but I'm really, like, surprised by this team this season. Like, I don't think really a lot of us, I know Logan predicted us to go 7-5, but nobody really predicted us to just have, like, a resurgence of sorts just by this young team.
Yeah, which should bode well for the future because, I mean, right now, what's next for us is we're looking towards the pro day, looking for some of the guys that are going to be looking to the draft, like TJ Tampa. I think Gary Vaughn's going to probably put his name into. There'll be some guys that will leave, will look to go to the next level. But, I mean, the team as a whole just kind of looks to be in a really good spot for the future. And I think, that's really saying a lot because they'll have a few more years with this same team. So I think, the sky's the limit. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the pro day too, seeing Tampa and Vaughn to probably go out there and perform for NFL scouts, potentially NFL head coaches. I know Mike Tomlin made an appearance last year from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yeah, I mean, even with those two players likely leaving, it still brings a lot of hope and just excitement for the next season. I know, like you said, Christian, Oklahoma, Texas leaving kind of lowers the competitiveness of it since they went to the higher-powered SEC. But even bringing in teams like Utah, the Deion Sanders-led Colorado Buffaloes, and even Arizona and Arizona State will just, like, I think it'll bring it up even with the new schools we added this past season. So I think it'll be a fun Big 12 season in general, not just for Iowa State.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, you even mentioned Arizona. Arizona beat Oklahoma. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good teams coming in. And Iowa State is on almost the same trajectory as they had after the Liberty Bowl, going into, at the Fiesta Bowl year was the best year that Iowa State's had. I mean, they were top ranked. They were competing and they won a really competitive bowl game with Brock Purdy. And I mean, Brock O'Beck's kind of on that same trajectory. They're on the same path, and I think, really the expectations, I mean, my expectations personally are high for this team. I think they can really go far and they can really prove a lot of people wrong because, Iowa State's been counted out for a long time, and I think since Matt Campbell's got to Ames, I think they're starting to fight back. And I think all we can really do is sit back and watch as the team really gets together and turns into maybe another really solid Iowa State team. So I think that's all we got. Memphis trip officially done, football season officially done. So we will move into the off season and we will continue having some good coverage for everybody. I think it's draft time now for the football season. Off season we'll get more coverage. We'll make sure that everybody's up to date. But for now, wish everybody a happy new year, and we will see you guys later.